Normally, when you're playing winning baseball, you don't want an off day. For the Cleveland Guardians, they absolutely need one. This one is going to feel good after the way they've been winning, and they're certainly going to need it with what's ahead for this team.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It may be an off day for the Cleveland Guardians, but it is not an off day for Locked On Guardians. We are Locked On Guardians. Welcome to today's show, a winning Thursday edition of Locked On Guardians, where we cover your Cleveland Guardians for the next half hour, from the majors to the minors, the draft, and everything in between. We are happy you're here with us, whether you are an everydayer or a first-time listener. If you are a first-time listener, I am Justin Lada, and I have been watching Cleveland Guardians baseball my entire life. I have been writing about their minor league system at places like the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and next year in Cleveland.substack.com, where you can find all of my analysis, and you can hear it 5 days a week here with my friend and co-host, Jeff Ellis.
As you said, I'm Jeff, the Mute Man Ellis, before coming here to Locked On, where I was one of the first people they decided to bring on to talk about baseball almost 6 years ago. I was a longtime nationally featured writer on prospects in the draft at Scouting 24/7. And I got to take a moment before we dive in any further and say, we're under 1,000 views away from 1 million views on the YouTube. That's kind of ridiculous in my mind. So if you are like somewhere our 700th watcher tomorrow, that's going to be view 1 million. So thank you to each and every one of you who helped us get to that milestone.
Yes, thank you. On today's episode of Locked On Guardians, we are going to look ahead to the weekend. The Guardians have a tough matchup. They have a tough stretch coming ahead, so we'll get into that later in today's show. We'll talk about the one thing that could help the Guardians really take off this season and really start to transform themselves into a true contender. But today we'll start with how the Guardians were able to survive a tough stretch, finishing off the series against the Washington Nationals. Before we do get into all of that, I want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Jeff, the Guardians just finished a stretch where they played 22 games in 23 days. That included 2 doubleheaders, and for the Guardians and Nationals in the series, it included 3 games in the span of 24 hours, which is insane for any team. It's a lot. It's a lot for both teams on that end. The Guardians, though, able to come out on the right side of all that, and I just can't think of any negatives to take away from that. I mean, there are definitely some negatives in terms of things that are going on and things they got to fix, but you go 14-8 in that stretch, and you take a doubleheader from Boston, one of the games finally after not winning a doubleheader last season. You take 2 or 3 from the Yankees. You take 3 or 4 from the Twins. You win 2 of 3 in Toronto in a win. Games you probably shouldn't have won, honestly. And then you survive this crazy series with the Nationals where each game the bullpen just kept, blowing up leads and coming back late, except for the Guardians, kind of let things go away in game 2 on Wednesday night. But this was a very tough stretch for them and a very well-earned off day. And you could tell they were at the end of a tough stretch and things were getting grueling when they had to get through it by using Kolby Allard in the 8th inning of a 1-run game, or a 2-run game, I should say. I was not expecting Kolby Allard to pitch a leverage situation this year, let alone the 8th inning of any game this year, unless it was a blowout. And, here we are. He's saved the bullpen a couple of times from catastrophes in terms of lack of length from the starters. He ends up pitching the 8th inning in this one and actually does a good job. Only 6 pitches to get out of that inning. But I can't think of a better way to encapsulate the Guardians absolutely need this off day. And just how great it was. They were able to survive the stretch by going 14-8 in 22 games for the fact that Kolby Allard pitched in a couple of those games, and he pitched well in all of them, and they had to use him in a high leverage situation at the end to survive. And we've got at our first mute of the day almost.
Nope. We do not. To me, it's like, okay, so Kolby Allard to come in is not what you want. But to me, it was more the fact that they had to go back to Caden Gaddis. Like, that stood out after everything, all the pitches, after their performance, essentially those guys pitch what? Did they appear in both games yesterday too? Or what? Like, I felt like they didn't
appear on both, but they both pitched in game 1.
They basically pitched twice in a 24-hour period. which is crazy. And that stood out to me. Now, I mean, Cade, that is about his fourth or fifth shaky outing in the year. I don't think he had that many total a year ago. It wasn't great for Festa either in this one. You know, I still think he's okay as that last line in the pen. But this is where you're kind of missing Seawald. I know Seawald hasn't been great this year, but you were kind of counting on that depth. You know, it's going to be interesting to navigate, but the bigger part of it is you need Logan Allen to go more than 4. And we had a lot of complaints about Luis Ortiz in the comments, but like Luis Ortiz is far from your 5. Like Logan Allen is this team's 5th starter, and he's struggling. And I don't know what the answer is. I was a big believer in him. I thought it was his athleticism and his change, he'd be the guy, but it just hasn't worked for Logan Allen. On the other side of it, Carlos Santana, you know, May couldn't come soon enough for that dude. He is Santana Claus once May turns. Huge hit in this game. I think, you know, I was at the Brewers game today. It was weather day. So I was kind of doing the game day version of watching. And when I looked in the box score and saw Kolby Arias had 4 hits, I'm like, I knew he was always on base in this one, but my goodness, what a performance by him. You know, the box score bingo, I keep that sheet updated. Kwan and Carlos Santana are tied for the team lead, but Santana's been the player of the game in 4 out of 5 games. Kwan is Kwan. Arias just got the double digits. He's almost has as many as Jose. You know, everyone reached base in this game except for Rocchio. And if you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. So I'll stop there.
We don't do that on the show. If we don't have something nice to say, we always say it. We have to say it. We try to limit it or try to put it in the best way we can. But if we have something that's not nice to say, we buried Rocchio the other day pretty good. We've buried John Noel, as our comments tell us to. And you know, deservedly so on a lot of those things. The offense this entire road trip, just, I mean, in this game specifically, just, I don't know. We were talking off air about like patience. Like they drew a lot of walks in the series. They were a little bit fortunate that the Nationals decided to throw a lot of wild pitches. The bullpen for the Nationals is
that really
bad.
A decided thing, or is it just they're not very good situation?
Yeah, it was not good. I don't know. It's just funny. Like this is the first time they've scored at least 8 runs in 3 straight games in a while. And they did a lot of their damage all in one inning. Like in the doubleheader, it was the 7th inning of both games. In this one, it was the 8th inning or the 6th inning. They scored all their runs in the 6th inning. And this is how the offense really hums, right? Like we've got a lot of there's some power this year, right? Like Manzaro's hitting some home runs. Obviously, Schneeman's been on kind of a home run binge lately too. Bo's been hitting some home runs lately too. But this is how the Guardians offense hums. They draw walks and they send a lot of guys to the plate. Like you get Schneeman getting hits and Kwan getting hits, and Arias had a good day, and Martinez did something. And yesterday it was Nolan Jones. Like this entire stretch, this is, you know, we talk about guards ball, and there's different areas of guards ball they have to make work to make the whole thing work, to check off all the boxes to make it work, all the components. But one of the components is you really need every guy on the roster. Like in game 2 yesterday, it was Austin Hedges hit a home run, and Nolan Jones in game 1, even though they lost, and Daniel Schneeman had a hot road trip, and you know today he played left field, and he's played some second base, he's played some outfield, he's been all over the place too. And then Gabriel Arias comes through. Like they've had to have ever. I mean, John Noel had a big pinch hit. They didn't end up winning game 1 on. Yeah, he had a big pinch hit double to come back in game 1, even though they didn't win. They've needed, 25, almost 26 players the last couple of days to win games. Oh, I say 25 because, Brian Rocchio hasn't done anything for them in the last, 22 games. He's the only one. But Zach Kent pitched on. He scored a run, sure. He drove an RBI, yeah. Yeah. But, Zach Kent pitched in game 2 of the doubleheader. So they've needed every last body on the roster to kind of complete the stretch, and they did. So that's impressive. I mean, again, we can have all these conversations about run differential and how things are going to hold up, and we'll talk about one of the things the Guardians have to do to make this start to stand up a little bit better. But right now they're winning. Like there's a lot of things you can look at and say, I don't know if I believe this or this has to change. But the key point is they're winning ball games. Like Steven Kwan's been great. He had one bad stretch against the Twins. Schneeman has really started to evolve a little more. Jose has not even played his best ball yet. Santana just started to heat up. The bullpen has been shaky at times, especially this week. they have the second most wins in the American League. You can't take that away from him. Those wins are banked. And if this is the stretch where they don't play their best baseball, what happens if things do get better? I'm not saying we can guarantee they will, but there are things we know that can get better. What if they do? Then that's good for this team. They survived a very tough stretch. And I think that says, we talked yesterday about team resiliency. That says a lot about this team is they're able to bounce back and have these big games and win different ways and survive this kind of stretch.
Yeah, and there's no quit. And we talked about that last year. And if you go back another year before that, it felt like they had a ton of quit in 23, where it just felt like they got down. They had every reason multiple times in these series to get down. And instead they got back up again because nobody could keep them down. And they kept, they kept coming back.
Had a whiskey drink and a cider drink.
I'm not gonna. I'm just having some fun here. But that's the thing. Like they never seem to give up. The key, even that game they lost in the National Series. It's like, how deflating for your offense. You score 6 runs, you get a 2-run lead, and your 2 of your best 3 relievers give it up, and they still came back and got another run and gave themselves an opportunity to come back again in that game. The fact that that's there is important. And yeah, I know it's their job and they're major leaguers and we hear those things, but we have seen a lot of teams through the years not have that degree of battle. And this team's got a lot of battle to it. And they're doing, to me, the most important. We can pull so many stats to talk about so many things. Second best record in the American League, and Jose has been about their 5th best hitter. At some point, Jose is going to be Jose. I learned that lesson a year ago. I'm not going to doubt him anymore. And, if you can get Quan and Jose going at that level, it's going to transform the lineup.
Yeah, they were down 3-0 early in this one. They were down in each game this series. I mean, C.J. Abrams, Ahmed Rosario, and James Wood had a combined 9 hits. Alex Call had himself a hit in this one. So, the Nationals hit the ball. The Guardians just kept responding. And, thanks some of that is their bad bullpen. But, yeah, the Guardians kept responding. They did it in Toronto. They did it in Washington. They've done it in a lot of ways this year. They keep responding. So that's the good thing. We've definitely seen stretches this year where they haven't. We've seen stretches in the past where they haven't responded overall, but that has not been really a problem overall this year, and it wasn't a problem during the stretch at all. There is one thing the Guardians can do to start taking off this year. They have played well so far in terms of record. We've talked about the run differential quite a bit, but there is one part of the team, I think it's pretty obvious, about what could help them take off this year and really start to solidify things. We'll get into that next on today's Locked On Guardians. Need to get the supplies that you need for these skilled trades. It is supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order all of your products online. They have an easy-to-use website, and it's packed with all kinds of helpful resources. They have the latest product info to help you get the job done right, and a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands. You're going to find exactly what you need. It's going to be delivered fast from coast to coast when you need it, on time. If you need help with an order, Supply House also has expert support and industry-leading service. You're always going to talk to a real person. You're not talking to a chat bot. You're not talking to AI. There's no automated prompts. You're calling Supply House. You're talking to people who know the parts. They know what you need. They've done this before. They know exactly what you're looking for. And the trade pros who are looking for an extra edge, Trade Master Program for Supply House offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line just for your business, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage of the Trade Master Program. Now it is your turn. Join the Trade Master Program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, a little bonus, if you use promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off that first order. That is over at supplyhouse.com. We know the NBA playoffs, they are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Momentum shifts. We've seen that in Cleveland. Can't miss moments. I don't know for Cleveland if they've been can't miss. They've been can't watch, unfortunately. So if it's a game-winning shot, we know all about that in Cleveland right now, or a breakout player, there's never better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy for you to stay in on all of the action during the NBA playoffs with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways to play than ever before. Play smart and win big. For the Cavs on Friday in Indiana, they need a win so badly. They are favored on FanDuel by 2.5 points. So that is good. I'm going to take that as good. I don't know how much they know about injuries. They do have a Darius Garland parlay, part of that as a over under 25.5 points. If he plays and scores 25 points, the Guardians, the Cavs are definitely going to win that game. I don't like to bet with my heart, but I'm going to bet that because I need the Cavs to win. I can't have the season be over yet. So go over and check out FanDuel and bet smart, but be positive about the Cavs. Let's hope Darius Garland plays and they win that game. If you are new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Jeff, there is one thing I think the Guardians can do. We've talked a lot about the offense. Jose Ramirez hasn't gotten it going yet, but he will. Daniel Schneemann is having a nice stretch right now. We'll see if that holds up, but right now you'll take it. Kyle Manzardo has kind of had a bit of a breakout early in the season, even though he went through a slump. Carlos Santana is back to being Carlos Santana. Emmanuel Clase could be better. Kate Smith could be better. The whole bullpen overall could be more consistent. But, Jeff, I think the one area that's most important for the Guardians to really take off and start to get things under control has to be the starting pitching. Like, just watching Logan Allen in that game on Wednesday, he just did not have any good control. And for whatever reason, lefties are killing him this year. It's so strange. You would think righties would, because if you look at the numbers on his changeup, which was supposed to be the best pitch for Logan Allen, his changeup's getting whacked all over the baseball yard this year. He doesn't really throw it to lefties, so I'm not really sure how lefties are destroying him, but they are. His sweeper is his best pitch. You would think the sweeper would keep lefties off of him, but he just cannot throw strikes to lefties. He cannot get them out, and overall, he just doesn't have any good command, and that's supposed to be the hallmark of Logan Allen's game, is command. And, everyone who, again, wants to focus on run differential, the best way, the Guardians offense has been doing their part on this road trip. The best way to get that run differential back under control, if it really is something that's going to make you feel more confident, is starting pitching to limit things. I know the bullpen's given up the runs the last couple of games too, but the reason the bullpen is giving up those runs is because they're constantly being asked to be used, because you had to use every reliever in your bullpen the last 24 hours, including Zach Kent and Kolby Allard. And Cantillo and Junis and all those guys. The starters have to go deeper. I mean, Luis Ortiz was okay. I'm going to say okay against Washington, but he could have been better. Gavin Williams has to be better. Tanner Bybee has to be better. Well, he knows that. Like, Ben Lively has been their most consistent starter this season, I would say. If they could get Ben Lively level of consistency out of the entire starting rotation this year, they'd be in great shape. And, we were talking off air about, Saris from The Athletic had a piece on the Guardians starting pitching, having the worst stuff plus in baseball. Not really a surprise, which is crazy, because I guess it is kind of a surprise, because Gavin Williams has really good stuff. Luis Ortiz has good stuff. Tanner Bybee's had good stuff. Ben Lively's the only guy in Logan Allen that list that shouldn't.
Well, I mean, do they have good stuff? We had this debate earlier this year. It's like they must not. If they're, as a team, their stuff is not rating high, and they're not, and their location data is not good. Like, they're kind of across the board, unfortunately, one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball. And I can sit here and say that a guy's stuff is good, and again, I'm going to say I don't think Gavin's is. If Gavin's is, guys would chase, and they're not. Like, he cannot.
Well, you got to command it. You got to prove to hitters that you can throw it for strikes, because with Gavin, hitters can easily brush off his breaking stuff if he doesn't throw it for strikes. And they know it's like, again, it's a 50-50 shot if Gavin's going to throw a fastball, so you can just eliminate the breaking ball. But they've just got to get more consistency. And I can't believe in 2025, like, we've talked about how some of the pitching has been in a better direction lately, but overall, it's been very inconsistent this year. And this is supposed to be the pitching factory. And in the last two seasons, it hasn't been very good. In 2023, they called up Tanner, they called up Gavin, they called up Logan. And we thought that was supposed to be the next wave. And those guys are all part of the rotation, but all of them are facing consistency issues. Like, Tanner was good in 2023. He was good last year. He stepped up for them last year. He's been inconsistent this year. He had to overcome cramping this last start. Gavin just has not been consistent his entire career, and Logan hasn't been consistent since 2023. So this next wave has to find their way. It's their third year in the bigs. That's supposed to be the jump year. And I know development's not linear, but like, the one thing on this team, you could convince me again to take this team from being a well, they're winning and they're hanging in there, to wow, this team's got a real chance to do something special. It's the starting pitching. I think the offense is going to be streaky, but it's going to be okay. The bullpen, I think, is going to be okay, because if the starting pitching gave them more rest, they'd be better.
I mean, I think that's also taking a little bit off the bullpen, which has not been sharp, like guys there. So I think we can't
be a little bit worse this year. We did.
I mean, we expect them to be worse, but across the board, they're not as sharp. They're not as good. There's a lot of scary underlying data that's that. But I mean, the bigger story is the starting pitching. And I do think one of the things we have to talk about is, the factory at this point is a myth. Like, it's time to bring that out. Like, brain drain is real. It has affected them. The development has not been as strong. We've seen a lot of guys have to regress. We've seen a lot of guys struggle and end up back in AAA. And then the other interesting thing is when you look at a lot of people who really dive into the numbers anymore, who, understand things that even I don't quite understand. Cleveland does not have guys in those lists. Cleveland does not have prospects in those lists. They're not making finds. They're not finding the next Tanner. They're not doing the developmental work they used to. The rest of the league is caught up to the factory. The factory, every team's got a factory now, and a lot of them are based off of Cleveland. Well, I mean, the Rockies aren't a Major League Baseball team. Let's also be honest about that. That is a AAA team parading as a Major League team. But yeah, I mean, every team has a factory. Every team's got at least one guy that they took from Cleveland system, and that brain drain has hurt them. And on top of that, they're not, a guy you loved a year ago, classic example, Kyle Steffen, who Toronto took. Like, he is one of the hot young prospects in baseball right now. And Cleveland doesn't have someone like that. They don't have that guy who was like a good college pitcher with good traits that they've been able to accelerate, that they can do more and add to. The factory is, this is, should we get historical? It's kind of like Ford in the 70s. Like the Japanese have caught up and gone past, and now they have to innovate again. They have to do something because they're not producing pitching how they used to. And that's why they drafted, I think, so many prep pitchers. I think they're trying to do that, as well as just the trade value being higher on those players. But I think part of the problem with the starting pitching is they have to be internal because it's so expensive to add pitching, and they have just not been able to do that.
Did you know Alex Cobb got $15 million this year from the Tigers? Did we talk about that?
16.
Did we talk about that? I don't know if we talked about that.
Has he pitched for them at all in the season yet?
He has not pitched for them at all. No. The Tigers, they're doing okay, though.
Yeah.
The Guardians do face the Tigers coming up. I've got one point to make about, I think you'll agree with this, about the pitching factory and a comparison to make. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll also talk about the Phillies series ahead coming up. How much stock do we want to put into that Phillies series? The Guardians have a tough stretch ahead. We'll get into all of that on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, it is time to talk about my friends, and I was trying to find it, Wonderful Pistachios. I have it today. I keep saying it wrong. It's the jalapeno lime that I like. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein and one with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. This was what I was eating pre-gaming for the show. I made pasta for my kids tonight. I could not eat it, so I instead had a bunch of Wonderful Pistachios to help give me some energy to make sure that I had the energy for the ad read and the show tonight in general. You want to use a good snack like that that's high in protein, not high in sugar. It'll fill you up, and you won't be snacking longer. You'll have the good things you need. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get the podcast. We're happy you're here with us. Make sure you are auto-downloading on Spotify, Apple, Overcast, all those fun places, so you never miss an episode of Locked On Guardians, never miss an episode of the MLB Squad Show that comes in on our feed, too. You can also check out Game Night over at Locked On MLB, and make sure you're setting the bell on YouTube so you never miss a video, reaction videos, bonus videos, any episodes we have 5 days a week on here. And if you like what you're hearing, check out the Insiders group at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. where we chat with our insiders during the games when big news happens. We're doing mailbags with them as well, which will be like tomorrow's show. So all kinds of benefits, including bonus content, whether it's written or audio or mailbags, video, lots of benefits over there. Join subtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. Jeff, you said the pitching factory is a myth, or it is a myth now. Maybe it wasn't. Is the pitching factory of the last, I don't know, we'll say 10 years, because it's been about 10 years, a little less than, is it the same equivalent as the Indians 90s offense where it is never going to be replicated?
No. And I say that because, listen, the high points of that factory weren't necessarily the guys they developed.
Is it the same?
Because,
but is it the same? Is it the same concept where it just won't be replicated?
Like the factory itself and the development, it's like Kluber wasn't really part of that factory. Kraska wasn't really part of that factory. Bauer wasn't really part. Those guys were at the major league level or about when like a lot of their
they broke out here. They
did, but like to me, the factory
peak.
was the minor development, like where that's like the Clevengers and the Biebers, and that stuff. If we're looking at the whole picture, and I can already see the people in the comments who will disagree with this, but like, the peak of it. I think it can be reached. The 90s hitting team, if Albert Bell doesn't hurt his hip and he's not a jerk, he's a Hall of Famer. Manny Ramirez didn't need steroids to be a Hall of Famer. Jim Thome, Hall of Famer. Like they had, all these Hall of Fame level guys. Like Corey Kluber, if he had started younger, maybe he's a Hall of Famer. No one else in that group is a Hall of Famer. They're very good. They're excellent players. But the peak in the 90s was just, you're never going to get there again. That's impossible. Roberto Alomar, Hall of Fame. Like, if Carlos Baerga didn't discover the flats, who knows what would have happened in his career. But
kept it going in the 90s over there. They need him back because it's struggling again right now.
It did. The stories I heard as a teenager. But when you're looking at the factory, it produced great talent, but it didn't produce that like high end that's going to be impossible to reproduce is kind of my view on it. Now,
that's fair.
It was great. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not saying that, but no Hall of Famers, but one guy who maybe, won't fall off first ballot at least.
Yeah. The Guardians face the Phillies this weekend. The matchups, this is going to be a tough one. You've got Luis Ortiz and Zach Wheeler on Sunday Night Baseball. You're facing Aaron Nola and Gavin Williams, and you got Tanner Bybee and Rangers Suarez, who made his first start of the year, who was good the year ago, but he's been hurt. This is a tough series. The Phillies are pretty good. They've got a good offense.
Excellent team.
They've got the best starting pitching in baseball by Fangraphs WAR. So this is going to be an interesting series in terms of dichotomy because the Guardians starting pitching not good. The Phillies, some might say the best rotation in baseball, even though Aaron Nola hasn't been his old version of himself. Zach Wheeler is still very good. At least you're missing Jesus Luzardo in this series. I think a lot of people are going to want to benchmark this series because the Phillies are good. You're facing good starters. The pitching matchups are all good. And, of course, you're playing on Sunday Night Baseball on Sunday, too. So I think a lot of people are going to benchmark the series and say and extrapolate a lot of what you see into how you feel about the team. And it's a 3-game stretch. They've been playing pretty well recently. And, I'm not saying you don't want to play well against these guys, but I think because of the matchups, because of the team, because of Sunday Night Baseball, I think you're going to see a lot of people extrapolate the performance this weekend to overall feelings about the team. And that's probably a little bit unfair, I think. But this is a big series in general because the Guardians' offense is going to be tested against good starting pitching, and their pitching is going to be tested against a good offense. Again, you got Gavin Williams going against a good lineup and Tanner Bybee going against a good lineup. Those guys need to perform. And we said, starting pitching is the key for this team to take off and start to build on what they've already done and start to make it a little more real. So it is a good test for both the offense and the starting pitching this weekend. The one good thing about the Phillies is their bullpen, again, soft underbelly. It's got, Jose Alvarado is really good. And it's got, who is there? Matt Strahm. Yeah, so they've got like one or two good guys out there, or 3 guys, and the rest of that. Like Orion Kirkring is a good pitcher, but he's struggled this year. Short of that, they've had a really rough go in the bullpen. So this is going to be another series where the Guardians are going to have to get to the starting pitching. And, thank God they're not facing Jesus Luzardo in this one. But
he might be the Cy Young favorite in the early going. Like he might be, he's at least in that
Mhm.
conversation. Just for those, just general data points early. Philadelphia, in spite of that squishy bullpen, 5th best FIP in baseball and the 9th best WRC plus. So they're one of the best of the best. It's going to be a tough series. Here's my question for you: is this potentially the last Sunday night baseball game for the Cleveland Guardians
Of the year?
Well,
Since it's not going to be on ESPN
not going to be
anymore.
on
Yeah, you're
ESPN
right.
anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure somebody else will get the Sunday night contract.
It's not going to be the
whether it's
same,
like,
though. It's not going to be like,
yeah,
I
it
don't know, for
hasn't
someone
been the
like
same
me,
for a while.
it hasn't. No. I mean, ESPN quit on baseball about 15 years ago, if we're honest. But it's still ESPN Sunday Night Baseball was a thing for so long that, like,
Yeah.
I think there was even at one point like a video game, like ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, the video game. If you remember that, comment below, or if I'm full of it, let me know. But there's that period
I
where
mean,
there's a lot of weird games.
baseball was on, NBC when I was a kid, and it hasn't been on NBC in a long time. So somebody will pick that up, and it was iconic back then because you had Vince Scully and you had, you know, a lot of
I
other guys
I
that
always
were on there.
remember
So Bob Costas.
like Fox. I think it was like Steve Lyons and some other guy. Like you would watch. I would watch it Saturday mornings after cartoons. Like I'd watch
Yeah,
whoever was on.
you had the
But
Fox
that
game of
doesn't
the
exist.
week.
Yeah.
But
Does that exist anymore? Even
no, I mean, this
no.
week in baseball's been gone. They replaced it with play ball, and you don't have John Miller and Joe Morgan anymore. And
Mhm.
I really like John Shambi, and I like Carl Ravitch and all those guys. They're pretty good. They're pros, but it hasn't been the same for a while. But yeah, you're right. This is probably their last ESPN Sunday night game, unless things heat up in terms of they do have a good schedule coming up. Honestly, they play the Tigers coming up here at the end of the month. This is a tough stretch for the Guardians. They have the Twins again, but they go on a 10-game road trip coming up. And it's going to be the Tigers, and then they also play the Dodgers after that. They come home Memorial Day weekend to play the Dodgers. So you have the Tigers and the Dodgers back to back, and you have the Dodgers coming to town after a 10-game road trip. So this is a tough stretch for the Guardians overall, but I'd like to see that Tigers Guardians game on Sunday Night Baseball, but they won't do it that quickly. But yeah. Tomorrow is going to be a mailbag show. It's going to be our first mailbag show in quite some time. So we'll get calls out for those questions. We might celebrate with a live show. Let us know in the comments if you tune into a live show to celebrate 1 million viewers for the mailbag.
Yeah, no baseball, 1 million viewers. Seems like the perfect time for us to go ahead and go live. So let us know if you'd be up for joining us. Thank you for listening, rating, reviewing, downloading. It helps. And go Guardians, go.